This came out. I think John asked about doing some more work on chimneys, and I've been playing about with it on. So I thought I would do a Pannier tank engine, and again, it carries the normal riders from me. That what I tell you is not necessary for the rivet counters, but more to give you an idea of how I would approach it. And that approach may help you in approaching something similar. So a little PowerPoint to start with, just to explain where we're going. It's only when I completed the PowerPoint that I suddenly noticed the number of hairs on top of the pannier. They're not supposed to be there. So please ignore that. It came out of a dusty drawer. So this is what we're going to look at. I think this particular one is based on a Bachmann design. And what I intend to do is spread it over 3 sessions. One is going to be the design of the basic body in Fusion, obviously, but that doesn't mean to say you can't use the same techniques in other CAD packages that you may use. And then in session 2, so that would be the basic body. In session 2, we're talking about all the fittings on top of the boiler and water tanks, the funnel, the fountain, the bits and pieces here for filling up with water. And then in the final session, we'll look at the detail, like the toolboxes, some valve gear and guards and so forth underneath it. So the first session tonight is going to be the design of the basic body. Then we'll add the detail into the firebox, as I said, and then we'll look at other detail on it, okay? So what I'm going to do is session 1 will be basic this. And I'm only using 2 sketches to produce this entire body. I always try and minimize my sketches, because otherwise I think you can end up with so many sketches you don't know where you are half the time. So this will be my approach. And there it is in Fusion. Now, first of all, you have to do, obviously, if you're copying it, is make some detail notes of dimensions that you want. So I need for this, for example, I hope you can see my mouse moving there. We need the dimension across the boilers, across the water tank and the boiler, the height of it, as it were, the length of it, the length and breadth of the cab, and the dimensions coming out here at the back of the top half of the coal tender and the bottom half of the cab, and also the overall sizes of the chassis, as it were. I won't go into greater detail because you can work these out for yourself on whatever model you're doing once you've realized the technique I do. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to produce 1 sketch. And if you can imagine I've drawn a section down here between the cab and the start of the tanks and the boiler. That's my section. So that's where I'm going to be drawing my sketch to, okay? I've done all this in advance, so hopefully it won't go wrong. So we'll move on to the first sketch. Sorry, let me just open up the sketches so we can see them. Let's get rid of this bit. So that's the sketch. Now, I'll just talk you through it. I'm not going to show you how to sketch because I think we've covered that so much in the past that you should all know that. So we've got a triangle, we've got a center line, which is not necessary, but it's just there. So we've got the main part of the body with the curves on, and you can recognize those 2 halves as being the top and bottom half of the main body, which contains the boiler and the water tanks. The bottom bit underneath the firebox door is this square here. And then you've got this bottom bit, which is the main chassis. Now, it's not the buffer beams, it's the chassis that's under here. The buffer beams will be added separately when we get to that stage. Then we draw the cab. So the cab, if you like, is this line that I'm highlighting in the blue. So that's the overall width and height of the cab. along with the curve of the roof and the curve of the windows. Again, I will quite happily show you how I've done these curves if we get questions at the end along those lines. But as I say, what I'm trying to show you at the moment is the technique I used. So having got to that stage, the next stage then was to create the cab. Let me just switch off the canvas. So I knew from measurement originally that the cab now was going to be 23 millimeters in length, as it were. So I've extruded. What I did with that one, I'll just go back and show you the technique. You highlight the entire thing and then you extrude that whole bit 23 millimeters, because that was the width, and that gives me my cab, which you can see there. And you'll see that technique I used a lot. So the next one up now is, and it's the work order in which you do it. I wanted to make sure the cab was hollow. So I then turn it on its side and I go on the bottom one, highlight the bottom, choose the shell command, and I put, I think, 1.5 millimeters wall thickness, and that gives me the shell, okay? Which we can see there. Moving on from there then, we start to extrude now the back half of the tender, as it were. Now for that, we've highlighted, let me just get, if I can pick it up. We've highlighted all of that and extruded that back. Now the tender here was 8 millimeters. So what you do with that one when you extrude it, I'll go into the extrude command so we can see it. Extrude. And what we're doing with this one, we're doing an 8 millimeter distance, because that's what we want there. So that would be 8 millimeters. But we don't want to cut, we want to join. But we don't want it to start here, we want it to start there. So it's a profile of an offset, and it's an offset of 23 millimeters, because that is the depth of the cab, as it were. You type in 23, whoops, as the offset, and you can see there it's come up here. It's brought a bit of chassis with it as well, because I don't want the chassis brought. So cancel that one. So that's how you bring that one out. Now the next one is the little bit on the back, but this one is only that, the two corners and that one. So let me just try and get it right. So what you're doing is just highlighting that one, and again you're extruding that one, and it's 12 millimeters that you want here, but it's 12 millimeters with an offset of 23 millimeters, so it starts there and goes up to there. Next one is an easy one. We just highlight the windows and extrude them right the way through. I'll just go back one to show you. So you just highlight the window, extrude it, and I don't bother working out, I just drag it through till I can see it out the other side. And there's the windows extruded. Do that on both sides and both windows are done. Next stage is the roof, I think. Yeah, I've coloured the roof black, forget that one. Next one is the boiler, and the boiler, as you can see, is again those curves in the middle. You highlight them and you extrude them out. In this case, I think it was, where's my notes gone? It was 75 millimeters, and that brings out your boiler one. Now I'll show you two things here, because you might say, let me go back one. In effect, it's that and that. So if I was to pull that out, where's it? Oh, hang on, wrong one. Let's start again. Extrude, and I want that and that and that. So if I brought that out like that, and I'll be going back in a moment. Now the problem is, I want to make the boiler hollow. But if I go upside down now and try, let's just turn the sketches off a moment and hit that to do a shell command, I can't, because it highlights the whole thing. And I just want that bit as a shell. So I'll show you how I done that in a moment. Just bear that one in mind. Let's put the sketches back on. Let's just do a Control Z and then we'll move back up. So that's that boiler come out, and then the bottom bit comes out. Now I brought them out separately because I didn't want this as far as that. If I'd have brought them out together, they'd have come out as one group and I would not have been able to highlight this to actually move this in or out. Whereas by bringing them out separately, I still retain control of that one. Okay? And that's what's needed, because when we... Where's my GWR one? You can just about see here, when I put the firebox door on, there's a slight recess that goes down to fit the bottom bit. So therefore, it's important that that did not match that one, if that makes any sense to you. Okay, moving on from there. Next thing then was to shell it out. Now you may say, how did I shell that out? Because if I go back, switch off the sketches, I can now highlight it. And I did a little trick in there which I didn't tell you about. See what I've done? What I did was to bring this out. Let me go back and explain to you then. Wish that pencil wouldn't be there. So when I brought out this bottom extrusion, put the sketches on. Where's the sketches gone? There. Highlight that one. I brought it out my 75mm or whatever. Bear with me a minute while I sort myself out here. So I brought it out. I won't bring it all the way for the moment. But it's joined to this one. I didn't want that. So all I did with that one is I went up here into offset, and I literally put an offset of, let's say, 1mm. Or it could be 0.5 millimeter. And you can see what happens is you end up with a join there. So if I go back to where we were, there, you can see that it no longer actually joins the body. There's a gap. So that allows me to highlight it. And then I can do my shell command, which is there. Then the next stage you do, you just angle yourself in, pop in here, let's cancel that one, and highlight that back face, and then extrude it back to join the cab, which will be there. So you can see how you can extrude something, because if I'd have extruded it as it was, then I couldn't have selected this for a shell. Selecting this base would have selected the whole thing, and the shell command wouldn't have worked anyway because it already had a shell. So in that case, all I did was to extrude this out where I wanted it with a slight offset, millimeter, 0.5 millimeter, sufficient that you can zoom in and then get at it to highlight it, and then just extrude it back. And the fact that you've increased this by 0.5 millimeter is immaterial. You know, obviously this cutout might be different for what you're doing, and if you're doing a pannier it might be different, because it depends on what motor you want to put in there. But hopefully that gives you an idea of how to end up doing a shell in something that you can't seem to get at. Next stage was another extrude, I think. Where are we? Let's just catch up. Yeah, the next one now is to look at the back and put the curve in here. So this is an easy one to do. We just click on there and we come up and use the fillet command and go on the side view, so you can see it nice, and just pull that out so it looks You can measure it if you want to, entirely up to you, but pull it out so it looks tidy, okay? Let's cancel that and move on to the next one, and that puts that one in. Now I extruded the base. If I go back one, what I done now was to highlight that one there on its own and extruded that up to the front plus 5 millimeters, because I measured it, and from the front of the buffer beam to there is 5 mil on this engine. So that puts that base in. And then you do the same thing, oops, at the back end. Okay. Then we took, you think, well, how did I get the extrude back? No, the wall, because obviously now, if I click on that, the wall does all of it. If I do a shell, it just, you know, it doesn't even start, it won't even do a shell because of the error. So what I do on this one now is, again, you go in here, you zoom in like that, get the angle, and you can just pick up in there. If you can't pick up the floor, switch off your sketches, and then you can go in, and if that's the floor, and then you can extrude that out with the extrude command, and out comes the floor. So you've got back to there. Now you might say, well, how do I do this one? Well, what this one is done is, I think it's on you, is it? Yes. I do a section command. Now with the section command, you can go up here and do an inspect, and you do a section analysis, and you click on there, and you come down in there so you can get inside the engine. That's it. Then you can click on that floor and extrude it out the way. And then we'll take them out the way so I can go back to our timeline. And if we look at the timeline, then we've got them. I've rubbed it out. I shouldn't have rubbed it out then, but I won't go backwards if you don't want me to. But you can see how it does. You go on to section analysis, which is that one, into there, hit on it, extrude, take it down all the way, and it's cut out. Take off the section analysis, 1 again, and there you're back with your body and your cutout. Now again, the detail in here you will have to add for whatever motor you want to add to it, sort of thing. And then we've got the actual other profile, which is this one, which I shall go back on now to show you, is that we'll put the sketches on. Let's just go back on that one and that one. So now let's get the sketches on. Right. So we've got a sketch there, which we've sketched the doorway on. This is where the second sketch comes in. You measure in, and the double line is to allow me to do the beading. So the sketch was put in, which is the inner one, and then I used in sketch mode. Let's just go into that sketch then. In sketch mode then, you highlight the inner one, or whichever one you've drawn. I've done the inner one, highlight several of them, and use the offset command to create your offset all the way round. That gives you that mode. Then you can extrude that all the way through. Now before I extruded it all the way through, there was one other thing that I did, if I'll go back, is because I extruded it through and I thought, whoops, hang on a minute. I extruded it through and I thought, that's great now, and I'll show you the beading on here, but I had nothing on the other side to do the beading. So before I extruded it through, what we've done, we put another sketch in on the other side. So we highlighted this plane, and did a sketch. But if you remember, and we've done it before in the button, so I'm not going to go into detail, we came down here and we did the where are we? Went into sketch mode on a plane. Where was it? Oops, sorry. Highlight that, go into sketch mode, and then you bring those down by using the create command and the project and include, project, and then you can go and highlight these other ones to bring them through on this side, which is something we've got on the button to button on the website, on the Merck site, and something that we've covered before. So then we've got the things. Now we can cut it through, which we did do on there. And then what we do on this one is we then extrude out. I'm not sure which side I done first. Where are we? I think I done the other side first. So let's do this one again. So you can see there, I've extruded out on the line, and then you highlight the whole line and put a small fillet on it. On both sides of the line, you put a fillet. So you end up with this nice beading around the door. And I think that's it. Yeah, that's a dead one that I didn't use. Right, I will stop there and answer any questions you may have, or go through any bits of drawing that you would want me to.